leadership, thoughtful evangelism, and mature discipleship. I'm also grateful for the quality of leadership that God has given the movement, both in staff and in students. That includes yourselves, whom it has been a joy for me to meet these weeks. So thank you for the chance to spend these 4 afternoons with you. I've been asked to share with you both from scriptures and from experience, but to do so a little more informally. Now may I tell you the 4 topics that I have chosen under the general heading of Problems of Christian Leadership. One problem is discouragement, or how to persevere under pressure. 2, the problem of self-discipline, or how to maintain spiritual freshness. 3rd is the problem of relationships, or how to treat people with respect. 4th, the problem of youth, or how to be a leader when still comparatively young. Chapter 1. The Problem of Discouragement. How to persevere under pressure. The pressures on Christian leaders are intense and often unrelenting. Let's think of some of them. There are our busyness and fatigue with inadequate time for the family, not even for vacations. Then there are the responsibilities that recognized leaders have. If their ministry is criticized, they bear the brunt of the criticism, and they have the responsibility of making difficult decisions. There are also the disappointments of the work. Promising potential leaders do not always live up to their promise. Some even fall away. Promising ministries begin to decline in numbers or in vision, and that is a great disappointment to the leader. In addition, there are the personal temptations with which the devil attacks all leaders, and there is the loneliness that we experience at the top. We may have no peers in whom to confide. All these problems can lead us into discouragement. In fact, discouragement is the greatest occupational hazard of a believer, as it can lead to loss of vision and enthusiasm. So the question is how to persevere under these pressures. I'd like us to turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, and I hope you won't mind if I give a little Greek lesson. The first verse reads, "Therefore, since through God's mercy we have this ministry, we do not lose heart." And then verse 16 says, "Therefore we do not lose heart, though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day." Notice the phrase that is repeated in these 2 verses, "ok enkakumen." That is the Greek phrase that comes in verse 1 and verse 16. Most modern English versions say, "we do not lose heart." Another is, "we refuse to become dispirited." Another is, "nothing can bug us." There is a similar expression that comes in chapter 5 to which I draw your attention. Verse 6, "Therefore we are always confident," and again verse 8, "We are confident, I say." That means we are of good courage. You may know these chapters well enough to know that in chapter 3, Paul unfolds the glory of the Christian ministry, but in chapter 4, he unfolds the problems of the Christian ministry. This is his argument. Because of the glory of the ministry, and in spite of its problems, ok enkakumen, we refuse to become discouraged. 2 problems: the veil and the body. There are 2 questions before us. What problems tempted Paul to lose heart? And second, what solutions or antidotes did he find to them? There are 2 problems that caused discouragement in this chapter. The first is an external and objective problem in our listeners, and the second is an internal and subjective problem in ourselves. The first he calls the veiling, which is kalaima. This is the veil that lies over the minds of unbelievers, and it blinds them to the truth of the gospel. The second is soma, the body. That is our own body, its frailty, this fragile human vessel which maintains the treasure of the gospel. So the first problem is spiritual. It is the blindness of the people we preach to. The second is physical. It is our personal fragility and mortality. When you have a weak preacher and a blind congregation, you have a problem on your hands. These are the 2 problems, and I do not think there is anything that causes more discouragement than these. Where is the veil? Look at 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 12. "Since we have such a hope, we are very bold. We are not like Moses, who would put a veil over his face." In other words, the veil in the people's minds is not our doing. On the contrary, we are very bold in our preaching, and we set forth the truth plainly. Therefore the cause of this human blindness is diabolical. It affects both Jews and Gentiles.